guys, so I wanted to clarify a couple things about exercise 4 just to make things a little bit easier for you. So the first thing is in part 1, for some weird reason, I did not leave you a space to write the typology sequence of the pottery vessels that are on the next page. And so go ahead and if you aren't taking the uploaded copy off of Learn, make sure that you write in kind of what I have here, which is, your oldest to newest sequence. And so there are 12 little spaces here, and I will fill them in, or you will fill them in with the individual letters of each of the pottery types in chronological sequence. My other suggestion for this part is that you print out this page and you cut it up so that you end up going from this page to a bunch of little pottery squares. And what this will allow you to do is basically it'll allow you to move your sequence around. So, you might think these guys go in this order, but when you end up with this one, you actually want to put that one at the end, and that might make you think, oh, maybe this guy should move over. And this way, if you have them kind of separately out and tactile so that you can move them around in the sequence, I think you will have better luck figuring out the chronology and making justifications of kind of why does it go from that one to this one. Just a hint, this is not the chronology. But anyway, go ahead and cut them out so that you can move them around and kind of use them like puzzle pieces. My other suggestion is for part 2. So it asks you to make a graph of battleship curves showing the relative frequency of each pottery type across the site. All of your battleship curves must be on the same graph. So these are just examples showing you kind of one of the ways that you can process your data. And this is showing you kind of how to do different battleship curves. I highly suggest that you try and make a graph like this because it'll make your life significantly easier. The bolded numbers are when each pottery type has reached its max popularity. There we go. And then these are the different sites put in order from latest to earliest. You can obviously rearrange the sites on your graph as you go. But I highly recommend that you open up like Excel and organize your data this way first. However, there is also a way to do this visually. So, and that's why I gave you guys the graph paper in part. So you are going to be looking at these tomb assemblages. There are 5 tomb assemblages, and I went in and made it more clear what the different labels are on each of these. And then I also, for some reason, these went vertical, any 2-digit number, and so I made it clear again that like this is 10 and this is 11. So there are 10 type C ceramic vessels in tomb 1 and 11 type J ceramic vessels in tomb 1. Anyway, so what you can do is, I have an example over here on graph paper. What you can do is you can decide that a certain size box equals 1 vessel. And then what you do is you draw out bars for each of your sites or tombs. You draw out a bar of how much of each of those vessels are in your tomb. This I just am using orange, yellow, and pink, but you are going to be using the different vessel types that are inside of your tombs. In terms of setting up my graph for chronology, you guys are going to be at an advantage because you just did part 1, so you know the relative chronology of these different pottery types. However, right now I don't know. I don't know what the chronology is of these different pottery types. And so, not only am I trying to figure out the site sequence chronology, but I'm also trying to figure out the pottery chronology. So I've just randomly put orange on. Need to fill in what is my site chronology. So that's really what you're figuring out here. And I am going to use these bars that I have to try and figure that out. So the first place that I would start is with the yellow, because the yellow pottery is in all of the sites. And so I'm going to take kind of the longest piece of yellow pottery. And remember that whenever you move one of these bars, you have to move the same site assemblage together. So I'm going to say that the yellow probably reaches its height of popularity at the center of the time frame, right? Because I know that it's in all 5 sites. And so if I'm going by a normal battleship curve, it should reach kind of its height in the middle. And so I know now that there are 3 orange vessels at this site at the same time. And I'm not going to write in the site name yet. Sometimes if it helps you, you can write the site number on the back of these. But I am going to say, this is probably site 5. I might write this in with pencil. I only have one hand right now, so not going to do that. But you might pencil in that that's site 5. I then am going to look and see, okay, well, where do I have my next biggest piece of yellow? So my next biggest piece of yellow actually looks like maybe the second biggest piece of orange, right up here. So, if there are 4 orange pieces and 3 yellow pieces, it's highly likely that site 1 either goes here, right? So the orange potentially goes on top and the yellow goes on top. So the orange is getting more popular as the yellow is getting less popular. I don't know yet. I'm going to have to see kind of how it plays out. My next site, so I'm going to look and see, I haven't gotten pink on the board yet. I don't know what's going on quite yet, but I know that my orange is really big here. I have 5 orange vessels, but I only have 1 yellow vessel. So that might be something worth playing with at this point. And so I know that based on my orange in this scenario, I'm probably gonna get bigger because it wouldn't really make sense for the popularity here to get big in the middle and then big again. That's not normally how we see battleship curves happening. They go from little to big, back to little, but not the other way around. So I'm gonna guess that my orange actually goes up here and my yellow goes on top. So I'm starting to get what look like pretty decent battleship curves, right? And so far I have site 2, site 1, and site 5. And again, it might help to label these bars. So I'm left with site 3 and site 4. And so I'm gonna think, what should I do next? For my orange, I only have 1 more orange. So it's really likely that this sequence, the 1 orange, 2 yellow, and 1 pink, probably follow in line. So I'm gonna move my 1 orange down and the associated yellows that go with it. Oh, look at that, it's starting to match up. And pink has entered the board now. So there's 1 pink vessel in site 4 that I am going to now add to the board, which leaves only site 3. And so I have 1 yellow and 2 pink for site 3. And I only have 1 more place to put it. And so I'm going to complete my graph and look at that. I've figured out my site chronology. And so I see that the chronology is probably going to be site 2, site 1, site 5, site 4, and then site 3. And again, I encourage you to label anything you need to label. Like if you need to label the individual bars, go ahead and go with that. But think of each of the sites as an assemblage. So think of each of your rows as an assemblage. So if I want to move this one, I have to move the other associated vessels that go with it. But this again allows me to move things around if I need to. So say I'd accidentally put the 2 on top of the 5 and the 3 below the 5, but that would mean that I would have to separate these two pink. So my pink would end up kind of up here instead. But yeah, that way you know that you're moving stuff around in a kind of logical order. Site 3 is going to be the oldest, and pink is the most popular at that site. We're starting to get into the popularity of yellow, and pink is fading out by the time you get to Site 4. We also see the introduction of orange. Site 5 is next with the height of yellow. Pink is totally out, and orange is gaining in popularity. As yellow starts to go out of style at Site 1, orange is still gaining popularity, and at Site 2, orange is probably at the height of its popularity as yellow is starting to die out. So I've gone ahead and cut out each of the battleship squares and my site sequence, and so now I've put them in order, the correct order. And so I have my site sequence with the oldest at the bottom, newest at the top. I have my oldest ceramic type on the left, and my newest ceramic type on the right, and then the one in the middle and so I would just end up, I am fine if you guys just end up taping this to a piece of paper, lining everything up and taping it to a piece of paper. That is acceptable to me. So again, don't be afraid of tape and scissors. I can't make this straight with one hand. Anyway, don't be afraid of tape and scissors, because they're going to be your best friend in this activity. And finally, I'm going to point out that if you do choose to do this in Excel first, where you write out kind of the numbers by site, much like I did with the bar graph in the first place, and you play with it in Excel, moving the site groups up and down, you come up with these battleship curves on your own. And so it'll be up to you to see if this works out, but you're gonna do the battleship curve by pottery type. So remember, your pottery type is going to be your columns, and your sites are gonna be your rows.